Hey, Jeff and Cole here from the Tryhard Academy podcast, letting you know that this episode is brought to you by Rogue Knights Gaming, located in Kaiser, Oregon.
Come play with us in one of our 3 family-friendly seating areas, and while you're here, load up your arsenal with the latest and greatest Magic the Gathering singles, D&D products, board games, and much more.
So come on in. Plenty of tables, plenty of space, and a selection of cards that are only surpassed by their down-home family customer service. Rogue Knights Gaming.
Heroes wanted.
Apply within.
Hey, it's Cole here.
And this is Jeff. Welcome on into another episode of the Tryhard Academy podcast, where it's always better to get good rather than get wrecked. This is the Future Sight series, a periodic podcast series about new and upcoming set releases and their relative forecasted impact on the cEDH game space.
Just like we said in our last episode of the Future Sight series, we said we were going to do another video on the rest of Commander Legends set as soon as the rest was spoiled. And this is that video. Oh boy, has it been dumb.
Yes, it is. As you would expect, this set is bonkers. It's gone full-on disgusting with more value in it than finding a deal at Costco.
Oh boy.
Now, the election has come and gone, but as far as I'm personally concerned, I'm voting Commander Legends for president.
Almost definitely.
And while they're at it, please for the love of God, lead us out of this goddamn pandemic.
Paid for by the Tryhard Academy Podcast Council for electing Commander Legends for president.
The hell? I'm Dana Chan, and I approve this message.
As for cards we'd consider maybes or fun stuff, that would be good for regular Commander games and not for a cEDH one. We have put that down in the description down below. For those who would listen to the Anchor podcast platform, that list will be also put in the description of the audio.
Now, the mechanics, as we've discussed in our previous video, are Cascade, Monarch, Partner, and Encore. We suggest highly that you watch our previous videos on this set, as we've gone into more detail regarding the specifics on those mechanics there. For now, though, let's get to the good stuff, starting with the reprints.
Kicking off this whole thing, good old Thought Vessel.
I love this card. I've used it in CEDH Ad Nauseam Fishbowl, as well as several other decks, most recently in my own personal homebrew consultation pod. I've used this card also in other stacks variant lists, such as Urborg stacks when I did play it for a little bit of time. I even played it occasionally as a mana rock in Blood Pod, the original Blood Pod, mind you. This card does a lot of work for 2 mana.
Yeah, no, this was a lot of value for 2 mana. Like, come on now. 2 mana for generate 1 colorless and give you unlimited hand size? What else is this card going to give you? A back massage?
You may as well ask it for it, right? Now, Mind Stone as a close rough equivalent does let you tap to sack it to draw a card, and that card is what? $1.52 on average, depending on...
Barely?
Right. This card got up to what, about $10, $15?
Yeah.
I'm glad to see it reprinted.
Oh, most definitely. Speaking of reprints, though, that we've been definitely looking forward to, Mana Drain.
OMFG. Love it, love it, love it. This card was sitting around $100, I believe.
Yep.
Yes. To see this son of a gun get reprinted, the last time I saw this son of a gun get reprinted was when? What was it?
Oh, was it? Not Ultimate Masters.
No. EMA, was it?
Iconic Masters.
IMA, thank you. Iconic Masters, yes. And
that
card...
dumpster fire of a set.
Well, that set did have some good stuff in it. Okay?
It did.
Let's be fair to it. But when that card came out in Iconic Masters, it dumped the price to what, about $50-$60?
There for a short period of time.
For a short period of time, right. And then it eventually climbed up and up and up to where it was now, right before it finally got announced to be reprinted. I'm happy to see it get reprinted.
Almost definitely.
The only thing that would make me happier in this set is if we saw Force of Will get reprinted. Yes, I know I'm asking for a lot. No, I don't care. It's Christmas.
Well, speaking of this generous gift called Commander...
Legends.
Let's talk about generous gift.
Speaking of the white elephant gift in the room. Yeah, no, the white version of Beast Within, always a welcome sight to see. Not that this card was too terribly expensive, but it's always good to see a card like this get reprinted for universal removal.
Oh, most definitely. Like, this is the white removal that we've been asking for years.
You know, when I look at a card like this for Vintage, for example, it's unfortunate that it's 3 mana. Otherwise, I would be like, you know what? I want to see you guys just use Beast Within just to go ahead and give your opponent a beast so that way you can trigger Oath of Druids. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not.
Alright, but moving on. Speaking of Imperial tactics of said nature, let's move on to Derevi, Imperial Tactician.
Oh, man, this Bat Commander has been a rock star in the cEDH game space since it came out. Stasis locks have been hilarious. Although, Grando, given the fact where you sit in the stasis lock situation, depends on your, what did I say, vision of the situation?
Knowing that I'm not normally a native stacks player and, you know, obviously had to learn to get good in that respect, I have been on the opposite end of Derevi stasis locks. It is not fun. It's like ordering a pizza and waiting 3 hours and it's still not arrived.
Exactly.
Fat kid hungry.
Yeah, no.
Chicken tendies. No. But seriously, yeah. Derevi Imperial Tactician is a solid commander for any sort of stasis lockout situations that you want to set your opponents up for. It has done quite a bit of work in the cEDH game space since it was spoiled. You can't really say much more than the fact that it's a good thing this card never got above $5.
Exactly. Speaking of a commander that gotten above $5,
yes.
Yukio, Tiger's Shadow.
Yuriko, the Tiger's Shadow, originally printed in CN2, if memory serves me right.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
This card got up to as much as, what, $15-$20 at one point?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, for Yuriko DD, Doomsday, which is what DD stands for, this card has been a monstrous powerhouse, looping Draco over and over again. Drain your opponents, go bonkers from there. I like it.
For 16 life per hit.
Thanks. Not counting the rest of your team, right?
Oh, yeah, no, most definitely. Speaking of another commander on this whole thing, the last commander we're going to talk about in reprints, Muldrotha the Gravetide.
I love Muldrotha. Muldrotha midrange has been doing quite a bit of work ever since it was spoiled originally in Dominaria. Muldrotha midrange as a concept and as a stacks deck has done quite a bit of successful work by locking out opponents from their resources, specifically hitting their land bases through smokestack effects and to a little bit lesser degree other taxation effects as well. But still, at the end of the day, this card does what it needs to get done. It's a crucible of permanence. When this son of a gun came out originally in Dominaria, and you were there originally, I bought a foil.
Yep.
I think it was, what, $15-$20 when I bought that son of a gun. I don't know how much it is now. I personally don't care. I'm not mad at this card. I'm glad I paid, the money that I paid, even if it is a fraction of what it's worth now.
Yeah, no. Speaking of a card, though, that is probably a fraction of what it's worth, a Braid.
A Braid is a great card if you're playing in mono red or red variant strategies. It's a bolt on a card, also a shatter effect on a card. Love the card overall. It's good utility, especially useful in decks that don't always have access to universal removal.
Most definitely. Speaking of universal, though, Arcane Denial.
You're right. Arcane Denial, just like Counterspell, which is also another reprint in this set. Thank you, Wizards.
Yep.
Counter your opponent's spell. In the case of Arcane Denial, you draw a card at the next upkeep. They draw up to 2. What else can you say? Especially if you have like a Hullbreacher out.
Oh, yeah. Get a couple treasure tokens.
Speaking of which, we'll get to that in just a bit.
We have regular Counterspell, which is just another 2-mana Counterspell.
Yep. Talked about that just recently. Not much to say other than it gets the job done. Moving on. Preordain.
Oh boy. Preordain gets another reprint.
A cantrip among cantrips among cantrips. I like it. Multi-format all-star. Can't say anything bad about it other than its sorcery speed.
Yep.
Moving on.
Viscera.
Love Viscera for any and all aristocrat-based strategies. Free sack outlet. Never hurt no one.
Nope. Speaking of another card that really doesn't hurt no one, Factor Fiction.
I love Factor Fiction in mono blue variant decks like TCV stacks. Great way to pull a counterspell off the top when you need to. Gets the job done just like Intuition.
Yep. Speaking of otherwise, another card that got a reprint, Coiling Oracle.
I love to see a card like that get reprinted. It's not that much, but at the same token, though, letting a card like this go up in value as it has been slowly and steadily over time is a little concerning. Still, it's, what it needs to do. It enters the battlefield, reveal the top, put a land onto the field, or put that card in your hand. I can't complain about it.
Nope. And speaking of the last of the reprints, and probably one of the more funnest ones of the bunch, Victimize.
Yes, you're completely right. 2 and a black, sack a creature, and reanimate 2 creatures at the same time.
Yep.
I mean, what else can you say other than it's a beautiful card? Put Mike and Walking Ballista onto the field from your graveyard seems good.
Oh, most definitely. With that done, though, let's actually talk about the new cards that actually will get some stuff done, and some of them are quite hilariously really dumb.
Yes. So I mentioned Hullbreacher just briefly. Let's get into that card.
Yep.
Hullbreacher, 2 and a blue, 3 CMC, 3/2 with flash. That says, if your opponent would draw a card, except for the first one in their draw steps, instead you make a treasure token.
Oh boy. Let's kick it off here. Notion Thief, that instead of draws you cards, you create treasure.
I mean, really? Thank you, Mono Blue Notion Thief?
Yeah?
Windfall? Time Twister? Days Undoing? Etc.? Etc.?
Create your own, was that?
Create your own Opus Thief in Mono Blue? What?
Yeah.
No, speaking of Opus Thief, a card like this is a slam dunk in Opus Thief. It may very well replace Alms Collector, although I doubt it. It's a very close tie at that point.
Most definitely.
Because you still kind of want that access to Notion Thief and Alms Collector and Hullbreacher and stuff like that in order to shut your opponents out. I really, really love this card. This is a multi-format all-star. Hands down.
Almost definitely. Up there with Opposition Agent.
Yes, and I'm glad that we talked about that last video. I had an aneurysm damn near. That card damn near broke me.
Just because of how ridiculous that thing is?
Yes. I see somebody playing a card like Hullbreacher in Legacy with a Legacy Wheels deck, for example, running it alongside Narset Parter of Veils, for example. Why the heck not? You have, what? Mox Diamond, Chrome Mox. I mean, you can make Wheel Thief Storm practically possible now.
Oh, most definitely. Speaking of some more crazy stuff, though, how about Quain?
Quain Iterant Meddler. I really am interested in seeing what people do with this. Personally, when I look at a card like this, the first thing that comes to mind is Mind Over Matter.
Almost definitely. That's like the first card I think of. Like with, was it Temple Bell?
Yes, you use it exactly just like Temple Bell. Now, of course, the obvious difference is Quain says each player may draw a card. Those who do in this manner gain 1 life. In this case, what you would want is you'd want to drop something like Hullbreacher or Narset Parter of the Veils prior to really going off with Quain Iterant Meddler in order to make sure your opponents don't actually have the ability to play any of the cards out of their hand. Alternatively, you could also play something like Silence before you go off.
Oh, most definitely. Speaking of the type of stuff that play around with commanders, Hellkite Courser.
I really like Hellkite Courser, even though it is a 6 CMC dragon. I personally like it for one of 2 situations. One, as a backup for Godo to just dump him onto the field. And the other, if you're short on blue mana, you could use it as a Niv Mizzet Peyrune enabler if you have a Curiosity effect in hand.
Oh, most definitely. And speaking about this too, is that this card is really great for red variant decks, especially in 1 or 2 color decks that have a big command, which have a red commander that is huge on the CMC.
Yeah,
and has a very relevant ability stapled onto them.
I agree. Anything that's CMC 6 or greater, not that you would normally play anything that high, but if you had to, I could see Hellkite Courser being very, very good in those circumstances. Or cards with a very hard to cast casting cost like Niv-Mizzet.
Or even like Rakdos, Lord of Riots.
You know, it's funny you mention that. Having Hellkite Courser just come out and bash your opponent, along with Rakdos in that case. Actually, you hit with Rakdos, you can then sack him to some sort of a sack outlet, recast him from the command zone, and he stays on the field permanently.
Yeah.
Which I like in that respect, but not that Rakdos, Lord of Riots, is competitively viable. But in the first two situations that I personally mentioned, Godo and Niv-Mizzet control, I like it in those situations.
Yeah, red variant decks where their commanders are hard to cast, or just a big CMC.
Yes.
Well, this guy will really would make them a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly. But moving on, let's get to our next card, which is Sakashima of 1,000 Faces.
Oh boy. The fact they had to make him a partner on top of everything.
Sure. When I look at a card like this, the first thing that comes to mind is Tymna the Weaver.
Oh yeah, no. For the 34 Tymnas.
So some context on that joke. I was having a discussion with Cole when I saw this card, and I said, you know what would be funny when I look at a card like this? Do you ever remember a combo deck in Modern called 34 Rhinos? 34 Rhinos refers to a video that Saffron Olive did from MTG Goldfish, where the whole point of the deck was to clone Siege Rhino over and over again. In this respect, we're talking about cloning Tymna over and over again. What I have been seeing based on cEDH Reddit and a little bit of the buzz within the cEDH community has been people trying to brew what is called Ditto Farm, which basically utilizes that concept and takes it to the nth degree.
Yep.
Now, when I was looking at it from the aspect of being just a complete total goofball. I'm talking about using your post-combat main phase like a pseudo-necropotence. Just give you guys a little bit of evasion and then just kill yourself. I mean, that's funny right there in and of itself. But you take it to the nth degree, you can literally use your battlefield as a pseudo-ad nauseum.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Oh yeah, no, and you just go for what? XYZ WinCon?
Sure.
Labman, Lab Jace, Thassa's Oracle?
Seems good. I mean, you can just do it and get there. I mean, any sort of a asymmetric stacks hate bear package, you can just go bonkers from there.
Oh yeah, no. Speaking of some crazy commander stuff, Tornob the Desecrator.
I'm really interested in seeing what people do with this. When I see a card like Tormod the Desecrator, the first thing that comes to my mind, budget 4 horsemen. We're talking Basalt Monolith and Mesmeric Orb, possibly other partner shenanigans as well.
Oh yeah, no, the fact that they made this guy a partner in addition to all this?
Yes, that's the icing on the cake right there. The fact that they made him a partner commander.
Yeah, no, like, I don't know, insert your Chrome craziness with whatever you want.
I don't know, you tell me. Thrasios?
Yeah.
Vial Smasher?
Thrasios Vial Smasher for some crazy shenanigans?
I mean, not that you would normally run Vial Smasher with Tormod, but you could totally do it in a red-black shell. I'm also thinking, like, Thrasios just as a mana outlet, for example.
Yeah, no, Tornob, go for the, Basalt Monolith, Mesmeric Orb loops, and then use, what would be a good card?
Dread Return for Sire Conrad the Grim seems good right there.
Or heck, even, what's that card? Phyrexian Altar.
Yeah,
Sack
Phyrexian.
your dudes over and over again, just generate mana for your Thrasios. And
I mean,
be like,
yeah. And, now that I'm thinking about it, if you're pairing, for example, Tormod with Thrasios, if you literally dump Basalt Monolith and Mesmeric Orb on the field, and you generate infinite zombies off of having an Eldrazi in your in your deck, you can just sack them all to Phyrexian Altar and then just dump your entire deck onto the field with Thrasios.
Yeah, no.
Seems really solid right there.
And this is just the beginning of the partner shenanigans.
Right. That's just what we're thinking off the cuff right here.
Yeah, no. If you add in other commanders, man, this could get some hilarious shenanigans going.
I want to see what people come up with. I'm hyped to see this card finally get printed and get the respect it deserves. But speaking of cards that get the respect that they deserve, Coercive Recruiter, this one caught me by surprise.
Oh, yeah, no. This is a card I had to reform Jeff. Like, hey, this card has some dumb shenanigans here. So first off, one of the big things that's taken out is that it's literally a pirate version of Zealous Conscripts with one minor adjustment onto it. Whenever it or another pirate enters the battlefield, you gain control of that creature. That creature becomes a pirate in addition to its other types, and it gains haste. Wait, hold the phone. Wait, when it or another pirate enters the battlefield?
Yes, and that's exactly what I had to do a double take on. I about lost my mind when I saw this. So let's say you play your Kiki Zealous Conscripts combo, and you use Coercive Recruiter in this situation. You copy with Kiki, you make a token, and then have that token take control of Kiki Jiki. Now it's a pirate.
Yep.
Go on and on and on from there. Whenever you start making more and more tokens, the rest of the pirates will then see that you have had another pirate enter the battlefield, even if it is a token. That allows you to start stealing other people's boards.
Yeah. Or generate infinite mana.
Yep.
Be Lord have mercy if someone has a Mana Dork out and a Thrasios out all at the same time.
God forbid. That's disgusting. you know, last time this happened, I had to go see my doctor because I had an erection lasting 4 hours.
Hey, look, my mono red deck is playing Thrasios and going infinite.
Stop it. You want me to go to the hospital again? Because this is how we send me to the hospital again.
Just remember, just turn around your hospital outfit.
Shush. Shush. Young man, this is a kid's show. Stop it.
But this is just the tip of the iceberg with the stupidity you can do with a card like this.
Yes. And finally, speaking of stupidity, because you know I'm a fan of zombies.
Yep.
Nevinyrral Urborg Tyrant. Pitiless Plunder loops, along with Phyrexian Altar and Gravecrawler. My goodness, this is dumb. Not counting the shenanigans you can get involved with, Nim Death Mantle.
Oh yeah, no, and we actually have even cooked up even a couple different ways of going infinite with this guy, with literally nothing more than a handful of creatures, a reanimation spell, and a Phyrexian Altar, of all things.
Right. So with a single Animate Dead or Dance of the Dead, or a Reanimate spell, and a Phyrexian Altar, you can literally go off for as little as 4 mana and 2 creatures with your commander in the command zone, and none of this considers whether or not any other opponent may have had creatures.
Yeah.
And so here's how this is going to work. First, we're going to go ahead and have Animate Dead and Dance of the Dead, whatever the two of them are, as well as Phyrexian Altar out on the field, as well as 2 creatures. We're going to start off the combo like that. We're then going to sack our 2 creatures, pay 4 mana for our commander, and play him.
Yep.
Our sacrifice count is at 2. We have no mana floating, right?
Yep.
All right. So then the commander enters. We now have an ETB trigger. And that ETB trigger says, when this creature enters the battlefield, create a zombie token for each creature that has died this turn, right?
Yep.
Okay. So in response to the creature's original ETB, sack the commander to the sacrifice outlet. Phyrexian Altar will say in this case.
Yep.
Now we have a sacrifice count at 3, right?
Yep.
1 mana floating. That means we get 3 zombies to sack with a total of 4 mana as soon as we sack them. We sack all of them. That's now 4 mana in our pool. Sacrifice counter of 6, right?
Yep.
All right. Let's go ahead then from there, reanimate the commander using either one of the 2 enchantments by sending the commander to the graveyard, because that's where the key thing is. Yep. That's the key point. We're going to want to send it to the not to the command zone, but to the graveyard originally for the first time. We then reanimate it. We have 2 mana floating of whatever type that we want.
Yep.
It's now back on the field, right?
Yep.
We then, with the ETB on the stack, sacrifice it again. You're starting to notice a pattern here, huh?
Yeah, most definitely.
In response to the ETB trigger over and over again, we're going to hold priority and sacrifice it. And if you keep following this pattern over and over again, you will eventually loop into infinite mana and infinite zombies.
Which you could do with whatever you want to do with. In fact, You do not actually, in fact, once you establish your infinite mana and infinite zombies, you could crack him.
Yep.
Use his ultimate ability, pop in the board state, setting you up for the next turn. And if you got an extra turn spell in hand,
seems good.
Pop the board state, go to the extra turn, kill everyone with a titanic pile of zombies.
Walk the Aeon seems really good for a circumstance like that. You may as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't think that's what Tim Curry had in mind when he said, let's do the time warp again, but sure, that works. Hashtag Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, boy.
Love that movie.
And that's just one of the combo loops.
Here's another one. Alternatively, with one creature, Phyrexian Altar, a Reanimate, and 6 mana, you can also go infinite. First, you sack the one creature to Phyrexian Altar, and you pay 5 for your commander. Your sacrifice count is 1, right? Cool. We then play the commander. In response to the ETB trigger, we sack him to Phyrexian Altar, and you get 2 zombies from there. For this one, we're going to then want to, like we did before, send the commander to the graveyard. We end up with 2 zombies to sack. We sack them to Phyrexian Altar. We have 3 mana floating with a sack count of 4, right?
Yep.
From here, we're going to play our command. We're going to play Reanimate. And Reanimate our commander. We have, 2 mana floating and a potential sack count of 5 at this point in response to the ETB, correct?
Yep.
Cool. Sack the commander in response to the trigger. You have a sack count of 5. We get 5 zombies. Sack them all for 7 mana. But now we have a sacrifice count of 10. From there, we can then pay 1 more mana to recast the commander at 8 mana, because it hasn't gone to the command zone more than twice.
Yep.
Actually, more than once, actually, in that case.
Yep.
I stand corrected. And then in response to the ETB trigger once more, we sack him again, this time sending him to the command zone. Our sacrifice count at that point will be 11, which means we then create 11 zombies. We then get to sack them all to Phyrexian Altar. Now our sacrifice count is 22. We're floating 11 mana, and our commander is how much mana? 10 mana?
Yep.
Which means we get 22 zombies?
Yeah. Go infinite again.
Yeah, you go infinite in a pseudo-Gravestorm fashion. I really like it. Now, obviously, all of this presumes that you're using Phyrexian Altar as your free sacrifice outlet. But really, you can use any sort of free sacrifice outlet. It doesn't matter if it's Viscera Seer or Carrion Feeder or anything similar to that. If you use any one of the creature-based sacrifice outlets that don't generate mana, you will have to finagle your mana a little bit to make that work, but it's still plausible and still doable.
Almost definitely. And Nim Death Metal, for instance, is even a hilarious way to even renegate the commander tax altogether.
Yeah, using Nim Death Mantle would completely negate the commander tax, completely walk around having to recast it or having to reanimate it, and you go bonkers from there. Once you have a sack count of 5, you're good.
Oh yeah, no. Hell, 3 if you're using Astronaut's Altar.
I like it. Stop it. Now, like I said before, obviously all of this presumes that you're using Phyrexian Altar as your free sack outlet, and this also means that with less creatures and more disposable mana, you can kind of cheat on this a little bit using cards like, Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, Culling the Weak, Jeweled Lotus, God forbid.
The list goes on from here.
Yeah, Nim Death Mantle also helps, like, with this situation, just as we talked about. But needless to say, this turns creature-based board wipes like Massacre into pseudo-rituals. Have you ever seen somebody use a damnation into a ritual? Turning damnation into a ritual is obscene.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
It's disgusting. Now, right now, boxes seem to be pre-ordering at about $100 to $125, with some online vendors offering pre-orders for as much as $150. What do you think this set should go for?
Personally, I think the appropriate target price for a set like this should be no more than $110, considering the fact that A, this is going to be a print-to-demand set, and B, the fact that there are cards in the set that are multi-format all-stars.
You're totally right. Opposition Agent, like you said earlier, Hullbreacher, like we mentioned here.
Oh yeah, no, and there's a list of other cards. In fact, there's a whole list talking about some of these cards with their legacy implications.
Now, yeah, and I'm glad that you brought those 2 points up. Like you, I think the appropriate target price is somewhere between 125 and 100. Yeah. My ideal set price would be 110. But, at the end of the day, if you have to pay a little bit more because people are out of boxes, that's completely understandable. That's just the nature of the market.
Yep.
Personally, I don't know about you, but I think it'll be definitely worth more than a standard set, by a little bit more than a landslide.
Most definitely.
But unlike any of the other Master sets, like the Modern Master sets, there's really no fixed print run associated with this set, which means Wizards could, in theory, print this set into oblivion, depending on the actual demand.
Yep.
And while it's understandable to pay a little bit more than 100 for this kind of a set, because it is a specialty set, especially to support your local game store,
yep,
I would say, personally, be careful where you get your boxes. Because I've seen some LGSs up and down Interstate 5 trying to sell boxes for more than $125. My personal opinion, if your LGS tries to get you to pay more than $125 for the set, go somewhere else and don't let hyperbole cost you money. What do you think?
Almost definitely. To me, I will pay no more than $125 for this set on the initial run, right? Once it gets a little out of print, okay, fine, 120, 150, okay, fine. But while it's still in print, do not pay more than $125 for this box set.
Yeah, just like we said last video, don't let hyperbole cost you money. I think this set's kind of like Jewel Lotus in that respect.
Almost definitely.
Now, that's all the time that we have for this episode of the Future Sight series. This set, as we expected, as we've been gushing about, is a total slam dunk. And if you're as excited as we are about this set, leave in the comments below what you think is going to be the hot card to pay attention to in this set, and more importantly, what cards you're excited to see in this set. Thanks again for watching and listening, and as always, it's always better to get good rather than get wrecked.